Ever wondered what really goes on in the life of a health and fitness coach? Let's take a deep dive into the completely uncut version of what motivates our team to do what they do. Welcome to Behind the Drive. And we're back.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
2 in a row, back to back. We are going to be expanding on some of the topics we spoke about last time. It's essentially a space for us to just have a rant on some topics that we
Got to
think...
give people what they want.
Absolutely. Some important topics. So last time we spoke about nutrition. If you haven't listened to that one, definitely go listen to that one because it was good at kind of almost myth-busting a lot of tricky topics in the industry. We will touch on some training stuff today as well to begin with, and then go into our some things that we've changed our mind on. I think it's a pretty trendy approach to a podcast, but I think it's an important one because it shows a level of like vulnerability in a sense. We don't know everything all the time.
No, well, you think you do, and then you learn more, and then you can't trust yourself.
Absolutely, and you look back and you're like 5 years later, you're like, I can't believe that was something that I thought.
Oh, if I looked back on some of the programs I would have given clients when I first started PT, it made me fucking vomit in my mouth.
Like, honestly, and that's not a bad thing either. Like, people are worried to look back and go, "Oh, that's what I was doing."
You've grown.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
if you're still doing the same shit 6 years later, then there's a problem.
That's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So to start with, we will just go through a couple of the questions regarding what clients always ask in terms of training. When it comes to lifting, right? Obviously, we do sets, reps, we do all that type of stuff. How do we pick how much weight, right? Like, that's a question clients always ask. Do I have to go heavy? Do I have to go light? Like, what are your opinions? What is your stance here?
Another question that requires no one-word answer, right? It depends on the clientele as well, like, and what experience they've had, right? Like, it's the way you prescribe load, whether that be through weight or through time under tension, is going to be dependent on the person and how much experience they have. I think as like a general rule of thumb though, not maxing out is the way to treat it, and sub-max work is probably the way I would sit for 99% of people, and then finding other ways of showing them, I guess, maximal effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like giving someone, being able to do majority of your work in that kind of like, you know, RPE 7 kind of point, and then to give them a little bit of what they want, you can throw in that like that random finisher set or something with like a controlled level of stimulus. You know?
Because there's a couple of ways we can frame intensity, right? Typically, we'd say like the weight, right, which is how much is being lifted, 20 kilos, right? Or we can do like a relative intensity, so what that weight is in relation to someone's maximal effort. So like a percentage based, like 100% of 1RM at a certain exercise. Or you can do what you just spoke about, which is what I do and I know you do now as well, which is RPE.
Yeah, or you could use like even just challenging people's positions, right, rather than challenging the load, right? And that is a form of loading anyway. If someone can't get into a correct position, you've got a vulnerable position that they're in, then the load becomes that.
Well, it just becomes a different... We're looking for a stimulus. We're looking for...
People overcomplicate the shit out of it.
100%. It's tension
on
the
motherfucker through some work.
Tension on the target muscle. Yeah. It's literally all you're looking for. And if that tension is hard, as in you can't repeat it 50 times, maybe you can't repeat it more than 12 times at a time in one bout, then that's probably a good sign. Yeah.
I mean, I know, and like... even with trainers that we have here, like I've seen it firsthand, unfortunately, it's just when you first start as a PT, your mindset is like thrash. It is like you think that someone needs to suffer to have a good workout. And although there's some truth in that because their perspective is that they need to suffer.
They need to come back.
Exactly right. So you can't be like, oh, we're just going to work an RPE 6 for our whole workout every single time, and we're going to do the same program every week as well for the next 6 weeks. Fucking awesome. I can't wait.
They'll just go somewhere else.
That 100%, right? So like, it comes back to what we're saying in the other podcast, is like, got to give them a little bit of what they want, a little bit of what they need, and then we blend the two together, right? And sorry. There you go. It's just going to say like, what does that look like in a program? It probably looks like 2 to 4 sets of something. Yeah. Probably looks like... the first couple of sets are reasonably easy, and then you've got maybe one set in there that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah. And you're working anyway. Like, we give general ranges, like 2 to 4 sets, 2 to 4 working set, 2-ish working sets, a couple of warm-up sets. We say general rep ranges of like 6 to 20, really,
Yeah.
which sounds ridiculous. Like, oh, what do you give us some fucking answers? No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to kind of just work within a range and see what the person's.
Yeah, I mean, if like what's good is because we're mobile, right? We know each session's 45 minutes. We
Yep.
know how much equipment we're limited by, so you can actually standardize a lot of stuff, which is really good. And I think for 95% of our population of clientele, you can actually pretty much standardize it across a few things, like which is, you know, we generally want them to be full body, right? Like, because bang for your buck, it's going to be best. You want to have anywhere between like 5 to 8 exercises. You're all you're going to have time for anyway if they're well executed. You probably want someone to have a little bit more of exposure to some more exercises, right? So you're not going to do 3 exercises, 5 sets each, are you? Like, it's just, like, there are certain principles that you should probably be applying in the PT space.
And I think if we go back to when you were speaking about RPE before, some people might not know what that is. RPE is just an acronym for rate of perceived exertion. So it's how you personally feel a given weight would be if you had, it sounds criminal, but like a gun to your head. Like, what is the maximum amount of reps you could possibly do at this weight and this exercise at this moment?
Yeah.
So it's like a subjective feeling, not purely objective, not the percentage, but it's a subjective feeling of how it feels.
Yeah, I think prescribing load, like giving estimates on load for your client to do at home when you know what they can do is one thing, but prescribing load is just, it's old-fashioned.
It's old-fashioned and why it's old-fashioned is because it fluctuates.
Yeah.
It's a big wave surfer vibe. Like, on a day where you're feeling really, really good, you ride the big wave.
Also, look at new clientele. Like, when their skill development goes up, they go from lifting 20 kilos to 80 kilos. Like, it's just...
In a week almost.
Yeah, exactly right. They're not at this level where they're not getting 1% growth. Like, so a 1% increase sometimes is stupid. But RPE, like, it feels extremely easy today. I might just throw double on the bar or double on the kettlebell in our situation.
And that happens.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen it happen. And it can happen with clients you've worked with for 2 years plus, because they're still at a point. Some of our clients only train with us once a week.
Yeah.
For a 2-year period.
Yeah.
They're kind of still pretty novice.
Yeah, 100%. Most of them are novice, right? Pardon me. And the thing about it is like they want to train with you once or twice a week. What should you be doing with them? Like and then most personal trainers when they first start, and this is coming back to, you know, what you think you should do when you first start, is you put them through a HIIT workout.
Yeah.
So someone says, I want to lose weight, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to do circuits. And then you smash them with, you know, exercises that burn through their hip flexors.
Yeah, and they're
in more
sore
doses.
for like a week.
Yeah.
And you're like, like, maybe that's what they want, but if you're trying to think big picture and long term, which you should, it's hard to, but you should, because you know it's going to be beneficial for them in 5-10 years time if they learn habits and learn how to do technique properly. Like, that's the approach you should take. And if they want to do a HIIT workout, don't be afraid to suggest going and doing some shit on their own.
Yeah, 100%, exactly right. Where's your time best spent with them, right? And usually that's developing like the base movements, you know, being able to push, pull, jump, you know.
Literally fundamental movement patterns, can you tick them off?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I've got a 55-year-old client, she's my only client that I train, and she's like, I've seen her programming change as I've changed as a personal trainer, because I've been training her for close to 7 years now. And like what she was doing 7 years ago, I'm still embarrassed. I'm even embarrassed talking to her about what we did 7 years ago. And now we're doing stuff. It's just as your knowledge increases as a PT, so does your programming. And do you know what's so funny, right? Is you look at what you do now, it just feels more simple.
Absolutely.
But it's not, in a way.
Absolutely. Simplicity
done very well.
Yeah. I think, I can't remember what the quote is, but it's like, to do things like less is more. And it's like you go along a pendulum, you swing from kind of anything can work for someone, you get down a rabbit hole and you're like, no, they have to do this very specific thing, otherwise they're not going to get results. And then you come back to like 5-6 years down the path, you go, well, you can kind of do whatever you want as long as you follow general principles and you'll be fine.
100%. Yeah.
So just to wrap up the RPE thing before, like, a lot of people would be concerned using that for beginners because beginners don't know their weight. And this is something that I think can be perceived as a barrier because they don't want to ask their clients questions when we're meant to be the professional in this situation. But you don't have to ask them the words and use the words RPE. You you can say, how many reps do you think you have left? And just leave RPE to your own brain and talking with your friends that are trainers as well.
So do you know what I do for my client with RPE? I actually say to her, we do run off a 3-2-1 system. So that's, which, like, you can argue there's better ways of doing this, but this is about the client, right?
Yeah.
And for the way that we position it is there's 3 in the tank, 2 in the tank, 1 in the tank. That's it. First set, 3 in the tank left, 2, 1, and that's it. And I say, here's your rough load, like, because I've trained you. Do it with that load. I said, when you hit the top end of the rep range, you bring it back down, 3, 2, 1. That's it. And that's how she's learned.
And that's using RPE. That's using subjective. On the day will be slightly different. Like one week she might do 18 reps of something.
Yeah.
The next week she does 16. And the week after she does
You can't
20 of it.
fail that way.
Yeah.
You're always getting relative load.
And you need that intensity of near failure.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be at failure every time.
Yeah. And then you can have, like, it's just nice to mix in. I feel like that gives you the opportunity to then mix in other things, right? So, like, you can have, for example, we might do like 2 sets and 8 to 10 reps, right? RPE like 6 or 7, and then we might be like, oh cool, for the last set 3 minutes as many reps as you can, and do an AMRAP. And you know what's funny with, I love using AMRAPs post RPE kind of training, right? Because then you've got, like, myself included, like I'll be like, oh, I'll do a 20 kilo curl and then for 8 reps, and then I'll do AMRAP and I'll end up doing double the reps, and I'm like, well, obviously
you tell yourself it was an RPE 8 and you're like, maybe it wasn't.
No, man. That's actually the best way. At the end of your program, just do an AMRAP for all of your sets, 1 round, and then you can see what you were undershooting and overshooting on.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you need to do that, otherwise you're just going to sell yourself short for other programs. And it's like, cool, but you could probably still make progression if it was actually an RP6 and RP7 and not an RP8, 9.
100%. I got stuck in that, actually. It's one of the things. I always thought I lifted to my max, right? Like I was confident I did. And then my coach at the time called me a little bitch. And
turns out you were?
Turns out I was a little bitch. Massive. I was a giant bitch.
Huge.
But I went through and did AMRAPs and everything, and I flogged them all. And I think what has happened is because, like, being, stuck in that hypertrophy, right? You kind of fill your muscle with fatigue. You're filling it with lactic acid. And you're like, oh yeah, that's max. But when you start getting into lower rep ranges, you've really got to experiment with what max is. It's very hard to find. That's why sometimes it's just good to just overshoot shit too.
And that's probably a feeling, and I would, again, this is a theory, but like why a lot of clients don't see, like novice clients don't see a lot of like muscular results, or they kind of feel demotivated after doing like a 12-week block, and they're like, I didn't get the results that I expected. And it's because maybe they're feeling that soreness in the muscle and going, that's my failure point. Or that's where I feel like there's a
very
barrier.
Easy to stay just being fatigued every week and not getting stronger as well. And that's only when you start working like under your max effort do you start really getting stronger, which is quite odd.
And if you really think about how strange lifting weights is, you're trying to put tension on the muscle and wait till you're sore and you can't possibly move that arm again or leg again, and then you stop. Imagine if you weren't lifting a weight and you just had this slow increase of soreness in an area, you'd be like, am I dying? Like, what is happening here? Like, why is my arm about to break? Like, if you just took away the fact that you're lifting something and doing it, that feeling to some people might be like worrisome or like scary.
You get clients sometimes that will just, pick it up the moment they get fatigued, they just put it down. You're like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm finished. And you're like, nah, you're not finished. Like,
you could have done 20 more reps.
No, that was max. Like, it's not max. You don't go from being able to do a perfect rep with velocity and speed and then all of a sudden can't do one more.
Yeah, and it's just like that feeling, and it's a barrier that you have to try and get people more comfortable with over time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we'll leave the training stuff aside, and we'll speak about some of the things that we've kind of changed our mind on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've
already spoke about it a little bit.
The first one for me is coming back to like what you do with clients. I think the biggest shift, and I think a lot of these shifts happen from your own training, right? Well, at least that's how they've happened for me. Like, I tend to not give people what I haven't tried myself.
Agreed.
Like, as a PT, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but it is a thing. Like, I remember when I was a PT, I would do a CrossFit exercise, a CrossFit workout. And I'd be like, wow, these were cool exercises. Then I'll bring them into my training sessions. And I think that's how I've expanded what I've changed my mind on. But I think the biggest one was how I used to put people through the work capacity I put them through. Like I used to put them through tough ass workouts, and yeah, we have tough stuff now, but in a controlled environment where it wasn't controlled. It was like, let's get your heart rate up, let's get you working hard, and
that's a sign of a good session.
yeah,
They're super sweaty, all that type of stuff, and there's place for that. For sure.
And if they don't exercise, it's still training max effort twice a week. Sick, that's awesome. Like you're not doing anything, it's still fine. And that's why if you're a PT, you're still okay. Like whatever, you go through this progression, but when you're training, you know, a 50-year-old female, smashing them every weekend is a fucking stupid thing to do.
My biggest thing is just do no harm.
Yeah.
And if you think there could be the slightest chance of them hurting themselves, like I won't make, if we can use like a BMI, like morbidly obese, someone like is 40 plus on a BMI scale, they probably will never skip, they will never run, they will never do any like impact loading exercises with me.
Yeah, not till they lose the weight anyway.
Not till they lose the weight, because I just like, I can do something else to get the exact same result of a heart rate.
It's kind of like positioning as well, right? Like when you first start as a PT, you're trying to put people in positions and you work your ass off to get them in these positions instead of just going, oh, let's just amp your heels up. You know? And you go like, oh, they don't care if they can squat heavy. They do not care. They care about getting the stimulus in their legs. They care about the movement. Like, so why not just put them in the position with like some crutches, you know?
Honestly, that's one of the biggest things that I've changed my mind on. Early days, I was like, I need to say so many different things to this person because I want them to almost be reliant on me to kind of coach them through the exercise. Like I am the puppet master and I'm here to help you learn the stuff. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, that avenue. If I can put someone in a constraint, I can put a box, I can put heel wedges, I can pick an exercise that I know they're going to do really well without me having to say a single thing, and I can talk about what TV show they've been watching. I'm going to go that every single time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, completely agree. And I just putting people in vulnerable positions, but in a way that's really safe. And I used to not do that stuff. I used to just be like, oh, here's a overhead press with a kettlebell. It's heavy as, just go for it. When now it would be like, okay, we're going to throw you some lighter kettlebells. You're going to do them alternating. So you've got, you know, different kind of stimulus coming through.
And even with that, like I literally would just sit them down.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
I would just sit someone doing an overhead press. I don't think I've done any overhead pressing standing in like 2 years.
And this is the thing, right? When you start, you feel like, because you hear a lot of stuff about like free weights being better or whatever it is, right? But it's not really about what's the most unstable, where for some reason when you first start being a PT, you think, like, how many bent over rows would you have done when you first started as a PT? I haven't touched a bent over row for years. And if I do, it's like one hand is pinned on something, right? I'm not doing it freestanding. And that's just little things like that. Like you think harder is better, don't you? Like everything you did was harder and better. So you do a client doing a kettlebell swing instead of a stiff-legged RDL, or you do an overhead push press instead of a seated overhead press. You just think harder's better. Yeah.
I like to think of it, I've mapped this out and I'm sure it's stolen from someone else's brain somewhere, but like simplicity and complexity sit away from each other. Yeah. Simple is as most targeted, like almost a machine-based exercise. Leg extension, right? Complexity might be like a single leg pistol squat. Like complexity stuff's fun and it can take time, and maybe you should get to it and do it someday. But in the first like 6 months to a year of training anyone, if I can pick as many of those super simple targeted like tissue exercises, I'll just
there's no margin. There's less margin for error, isn't it? You get even like getting someone on a seated chest press at the gym, right? Like cool. Like how can you really mess that up? Yeah, elbows can flare out a little bit, but whoop-de-doo, you're not going to drop the seated press on you.
And one of the best things is you can actually take, like we were speaking about before with RP, you can actually take it to failure and it'd be safe. Yeah. Like, it's safe. Like, there's just, when we say safe, there's just less room for error.
Yeah, it's all about just mitigating risk.
Yeah. It's like fucking risk management, like a business.
Yeah, and that's funny. I look back on my own training. I'd be like, I don't know why I'm getting injured. I've just got such bad luck. And I'm like, here I am, like, squatting with shit form. I'm deadlifting. I'm doing bent over rows on the same day I'm deadlifting. And I'm wondering why my erectus are fucked. Like... It's just
and those exercises are hard to do well. And if you look at the top levels of sport, like powerlifting is a sport for a reason, and squatting, benching, and deadlifting with really good form with really heavy weight is not easy.
Honestly, squatting, benching, and deadlifting for general client, it has to be just the most ridiculous thing.
Unless they ask you to do it.
Even for myself, like I don't even squat. I'll do a form of squat.
Yeah.
Like I'll do something.
You'll load your quads.
Yeah, I'll load my quads. Like I'll go on a hack squat. Awesome. Love a hack squat. I'll go on a, like one of the, what are they called again? I've just gone assisted, what are they called? The machine, the bars that on a machine.
Like a Smith machine.
Yeah, Smith machine, sorry. I do like feet forward with Smith machine squats,
Yep.
but because if you're looking at what I want out of life, like I want to be able to run better, move better, feel better. I also want jacked quads.
Yep.
I get all of that without any of my back getting flared up. And yes, I can still do a squat. I can still lift heavy on a bar, but there's no risk. Like there's very little risk. So why would I not do that? And why would you not do that for a client? It's just stupid.
And I initially said that we would probably opt for those more simple, less complex exercises for beginners. But I'd just say
For everyone.
anyone.
Yeah.
Like,
and if your goal was to get good at that movement, then you do the movement, obviously. No shit,
sure.
right? But like no one's goal is that unless you're a powerlifter. Or like and even a client that says to you, I want to be able to squat heavy.
Ask
if you
them
actually
why.
drilled in why, it would probably be an egocentric
or I want to get
answer.
bigger legs, or I heard this is the best exercise for getting bigger legs. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's unpack that a little bit more.
I think you, like, coming back, I could speak about positions all day, but I even think the positions you put clients in is just such a, that shows how much skill you've got as a PT. Like what you choose to do with someone from a position point of view for that movement and like that staple movement says everything about you as a coach. Like if you've got someone who's never trained with you and they're like, cool, we're going to do legs, right? And you've got a dumbbell. What you choose to do with that says everything, right? Because a normal PT would just put the dumbbell in the fucker's hands and just say squat, wouldn't they? But then someone with a bit more experience might do it as a front-loaded squat.
Yeah.
And then someone else might do it as like a seated into a box.
Yeah.
Someone else might raise the heels and do a front. But like it's just, all of that was just positioning based off the level of experience you have. And it's the same with that for every, like, I guess, major movement, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You should never, I was going to say you should never see your clients fail. But I would say 95% of the time, your client should never fail an exercise.
They don't know how to yet. They haven't earned the right
they just
to fail.
should. They should, and you should just be picking. Even if you have to like regress an exercise, for an example, like they can't get the balance in something. You've been training them for 6 months. They can't get the balance in an exercise. They're going to feel bad, and you picked a bad exercise for them.
Yeah.
Like, sure, maybe if you're getting to a point where you're really pushing
they actually
progressions.
do feel bad, don't they? When they don't do
100%.
it, they're actually like, oh, I'm so bad.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not supposed to be able to really do it too well either.
Yeah.
But like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Completely.
it should be on me if the client can't do that exercise because I've picked it.
Yeah.
Imagine if I was a driving instructor and I told this person, I want you to drift around that corner. And they've never drifted around a corner before.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's not a driving test. But
Could you drift around the corner?
absolutely not. So I would just not be ready to do it. Like, you're the one that is the teacher in this situation. And if you tell someone to do something that's not within their scope of ability, it's on you as the teacher, not the client because they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you need to build someone up to that.
100%.
In my opinion, anyway. What would we know, huh?
Yeah.
What would we know?
It's crazy, isn't it? Just what you put clients through and what you fucking ruin their lives with.
And it should, not to like put it on people to feel bad about this, but it should make you feel bad in some capacity if your client is feeling bad.
Yeah, 100%. For sure, I agree. And then it's funny, I don't have any clients these days compared to what I used to, obviously. But even the clients I have and the clients I've had recently don't get injured. And then I go, oh, my clients back then must have just had bad luck. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
I was the bad luck.
Yeah.
You just don't think it and you don't realise it, right?
Yeah. And it's not to say injuries never happen, but like, they really should not happen in your PT sessions.
Look, if you're doing burpees or mountain climbs, just don't. Okay?
Yeah, just don't. Honestly, just don't. Just pick a different exercise.
If you're actually a PT of ours just listening to this, please don't do burpees or mountain climbers.
I have never.
And that's coming from a guy who's got Guinness World Record in burpees.
Yeah,
right?
legit. I remain to this day, as long as I've done personal training, I have never prescribed a burpee in my life.
Yes, yeah.
And I will not.
Wish I was.
I will not ever.
Do you know what? In a group setting on like a corporate boot camp, one thing, you know.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, all right.
I'm not doing it.
You know what? Sometimes you're gonna throw them a little burpee, but For a client that you're trying to progress with.
When have I ever had a strong stance on one thing in particular?
Yeah, no, but you're also not a group trainer where you go out and train a 50 group corporate event.
You run an exercise because you're doing free.
I'm telling you, you can get strapped for exercises.
Stuff,
yeah. Like if I was at a corporate event, I'm like, all right, everyone get out your heel wedges.
Don't you guys have those?
Everyone got your front rack position.
Yeah, legit.
Yeah, we're going to do an inchworm with a burpee instead. Yep. No, like it just doesn't work. Yeah. And you know what the hard thing with like group training is that you have to give things really hard because then people will just do what they want anyway.
Yeah, they're going to do the easy shit.
Yeah, like you give someone a squat and you'll have 400 people do it one way and 400 people do it the other way. Like, and there's 20 in the group class somehow and there's 400, but yeah.
You got to make stories sound good.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Absolutely not.
Chopper
That's
Reed
a fact.
said that.
Next thing that... this is a cool topic. I can't believe you just referenced
Chopper Reed. Fuck, that's bad.
One thing that I've changed my mind on, I think it'll be a cool conversation, is meal services.
Yeah, what do you think they're bad or good?
What's
the current Seaton?
I was always like, you can find time to make your own food.
Oh, really? I always took the lazy approach as a PT back then. I was like, just go on this because I know you're going to lose weight off it.
I am like pro meal service, and maybe it's like shifting from something like My Muscle Chef where it's really prepackaged to HelloFresh or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I actually see that as a sustainable long-term thing.
100%. Like I use HelloFresh. I still use 3 days a week though.
Yeah.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's just like from a variety perspective and yeah.
There are so many things on there now.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's honestly the same price as me buying my meals.
Yeah.
I think certain ones for certain people is the way to go, right? Like if someone who's learning how to exercise for the first time, they probably don't want to struggle with the food side straight away. So
as
they might
well
go
as the
from
exercise.
Yeah, let's get them on Muscle Chef for a while.
Yeah.
You know, and then maybe we'll integrate one of the dinners or breakfasts out. Or like there's just so much to take in. It's just nothing should be written off as a wrong tool.
Because my initial thoughts of it all was it's like not that it's cheating, but you probably know how to cook food by the age of like 25.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear it.
Still fucking air frying.
But like, it's not a bad thing. That counts as cooking. If it doesn't, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, microwave veg, packet rice, and an air fried meat. Yeah. That is me.
That's literally it.
That is. I haven't changed.
But like, say they're 35, 40, they've got kids and that type of stuff. Yeah. Like, for them, they don't have to cook. They don't have to give My Muscle Chef to the kids.
Yeah.
But if they want a way to stay within the goals that they have for themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
I do last resort meals. I actually call it because a lot of clients will actually push back on doing a meal service. So you'll have some people who want to do it, and then you'll have some people like, I don't want to do a meal service. And you're like, that's fine, cool. We're going to focus on cooking, and then they'll eat shit at night. And they'll go, oh, well, I just didn't have anything. I'm like, cool, all right. Well, then they'll do it again. I'm like, okay, let's do last resorts. Why don't you just buy a few of them and put them in the freezer? And they won't do it. They won't do it. But then they'll have that takeout meal instead, and then they'll negatively bag out the meal service. It's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think having, like for me, I've always got like those last resort meals. Like I'll buy like those Pro pieces. Sort of you know, like those 50 grams.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're all right. They're all right. $13, 50 grams of protein, like reasonably low in calories. And I'll have them in the freezer. I won't make them as part of my weekly plan, but when shit hits the fan, because it inevitably will at some point.
At least once a week.
Or if I just can't be bothered, right? I've got that. And then my last resort becomes that versus Uber Eats or versus something else. Like it's like setting yourself up for success.
Those fail safes.
Yeah, exactly. By creating fail safes. It's like having doubt in your mind that you're gonna mess up, right? It's kind of weird.
You will. Like
you're human, right? You're human.
If everyone was adhering 100%, then we wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, 100%.
Is there anything else you've changed your mind on? Because I've got one more thing.
A million things, but no, I think for me it was like work capacity, because I think that comes from my own internal dialogue.
What do you mean by work capacity?
As in, like, I always just thought I had to give them more. Sorry.
Okay.
Like, yeah, the level of intensity and the level of work I put them through, I felt like always had to be a lot. Okay. And I was very pro just putting them through shit. So, like, I would do boxing, I'd do running, I'd do jumping, I'd do fucking CrossFit workouts. And, like, there would still be an element of hypertrophy in there, don't get me wrong, but...
That stimulus is just going to get someone anyway. Yeah.
I didn't care. I was just, like, put them through the shit. You know, a couple of exercises on a superset, whatever. That was it. And, like... They progressed, of course they did. But that's my biggest thing that I regret not having more of a strategic approach to it.
Okay. I think again, there's always going to be two sides to the coin. So there is still positives in that.
Of course there is.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
you're putting someone through exercise and they don't
training.
exercise.
Yeah. So it's still a win. And we're not going to say don't do that for your clients if you're doing like 20 sessions a week.
Just be better.
Yeah.
Just be better. You're still going to be okay. Just be better than okay.
Yeah, just pick slightly better exercises and do the exact same thing you were doing before.
Some people can't even tolerate it. I remember I went out to this couple. I won't name them, but I went out to this couple, right? They seemed like okay from a fitness perspective. Anyway, I remember getting them to do, under time, because there was two of them. They never do reps with people.
Forget about it.
No, so I did 30 seconds of just body weight squats, and then 30 seconds of knee push-ups, and then 30 seconds of like a slight jog on the spot. Nothing wrong with that. 2 sets, both vomiting in the bushes. Complete
Really?
session over. Yeah. So, like, you know, you've got an example there of just like, it doesn't really matter if you put them through hypertrophy, you put them through HIIT, like they haven't earned the right to have choice yet. They just have to have work capacity.
Yeah.
So getting people to put, you know, I was thinking of Deadpool. Have you seen Deadpool?
Love that movie.
It's like maximal effort. Like I always think about that, just like maximal effort in everything you do and you're all good. Like, and even if that means overshooting it, so what? So what? Just get people moving, right? But yeah, so go on.
Cool.
What do you got?
I'm kind of happy to keep it there today. Nice and short, keep it quick.
Nice.
If
Punchy
people are
episode.
interested, we're churning them out now.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll finish off today and we'll probably have you back to talk about some miscellaneous ones as time goes.
Yeah, cool. I think that this one was really more about what you should put in a program in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Cool.